Good. So, and then what's the convention to kind of go around the circle and people can say briefly what brought them here, what they hope to see here in the next 50 minutes? Is that?
Yeah, we should, why don't you tell us what's on the agenda and invite people to see what they want to cover and with what we hear or whatever. And this is what? This is the regular member Zoom hangout. We have Rich as our guide here, at least for the topic of the special meeting, which is the primary thing on the agenda. Feel free to add your own agenda items. I haven't looked recently, and we also want to encourage members to contribute to the notes. I will put the URL in the chat.
Gary has it at the top of the chat. Oh, but let's do it fresh because people have joined. That's right.
Yeah.
So we are recorded, and I heard somebody join. And so if anyone is, is about to offer comments that they prefer be confidential, please call and please let it be known before you speak. And Jim can pause the recording. So I guess, yeah, I guess I'll go to, if no one has any objection, we could start with actually, I'd rather not. I'd rather go just with people, rather than directing it as special meeting right off. I'd like to take, say, 10 minutes, and if people just want to go around, I can call out. We'll start with Crayola King. What are you hoping to see from the meeting? And when you're done, I'll just pass to the next on the list. So we get some reading of member sentiment, and so members can review this recording and get a sense of where members are at. Right now we have 12 members on the call. So let's take no more than 15 minutes for this. Crayola King, do you have a comment? What brought you?
Just put something in the chat. I will read it. I am not speak. The lobster knows secrets of deep, but does not speak. Okay.
And Nutsipper also wishes to listen only. There's Saemol, S-A-E-M-O-L. Would you like to speak? Or chat? All right, this is a notice to the new person that joined that we are recording. If you wish to speak, you can let us know. And we'll pause the recording if you feel that way about anything you want to offer. Next up, I see Kelly Foster is on my list. Kelly, do you want to speak about what you're hoping to see from this meeting of members, or what's on your mind right now?
No, I'm largely here because I, of course, am a representative of the dev team. So trying to make sure that I'm keeping tabs on the heart and spirit of membership, and as it relates to the development of the platform.
Great. Ned, I see you next on my list. Do you want to offer a comment?
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the platform and where we're going. I'm interested in the work you guys have been doing. I wasn't able to join last Saturday, but I've listened and read through what happened, and so I'm I'm an interested participant. Today I'm concerned about the suspension of rock trading on KuCoin. And so I'm concerned about that and see if there's any insights, and then whatever else the community wants to discuss.
Great. Let's try to have time for that after we run through the group here. Next up that I see is Deanna. Deanna, do you want to offer your comment, what you're hoping for here, or What's on your mind right now?
Yeah, I'm just hoping to catch up on what the members have been up to, and a little bit more interested in the special meeting, figure out what's going on moving forward since we've had a number of board members leaving, and what's going on with the funding and all the other stuff that's been going on. I haven't been really engaged in attending the weekly debriefs since I guess the beginning of March, so hoping to re-engage and get a little bit better handle on what's been going on.
Great. I will comment that, so the special meeting process, there's a GitHub of special meeting issues where members are encouraged to engage the dialogue there, especially to volunteer for the kinds of issues, either to offer issues or engage the dialogue, take on responsibilities. So that's a great site. And if someone can post the link there, or I'll get to it in a minute. So to recap the history of the special meeting, 10% of the presently recorded active members indicated their sentiment for a special meeting process under the bylaws. And Dan Connolly has offered to facilitate. And what came of that process was a series of 3 meetings, the first of which occurred last Saturday at 7 a.m. during his office hours. There'll be another meeting this Saturday at 7 a.m. on his office hours, and then another meeting on Tuesday. Actually, you can kind of see him on the whiteboard behind me. On Tuesday at 3 p.m. These are Pacific Standard Time times. The third meeting, and Greg had made himself available for that meeting. I don't know if it's confirmed, but just that may be of interest. So those meetings, the notes are posted at the top of the issues GitHub. There's a video recording of that session. It's about 90 minutes long. It starts about 10 minutes in. So there's an interesting version of Hotel California at the opening part, but beyond that, then a meeting starts. And there's some really pertinent information. It was a very interesting dialogue that included 2 board members. We reviewed conditions of the co-op monetary policy under IOB 5. It seemed to be quite educational for everyone there. And I encourage, Dan scribed live. And by the way, Dan scribed live, so there's a live scribe document that he has annotated, so you can go there and see, more or less what transpired in the meeting, or watch the video recording. Again, that's at the GitHub link related to SM19A, special meeting 19A GitHub issues link. Which brings me to one good question for that process before I continue with the rest is, if someone in the chat wants to volunteer to be scribe on Saturday, that would be great. This last Saturday, Dan was both leading the meeting, playing guitar, and scribing. Incredibly talented person, but if we could take the burden off him a little bit and have someone commit prior to the meeting to do live scribing, that would be great. So we'll get back to some of those issues. I did want to make that announcement. And continuing down the list, the next person I see here is Gary. Gary, do you have a comment for what you'd hope from this meeting?
Well, I'm a regular here. I've been coming to these meetings, the meeting before Greg's, for a long time. Back in the scenario days, HJ started this meeting. This is the important meeting for me, where we get to see what the members are thinking about and their concerns. So this meeting is even more important in some ways to me than Greg's meetings. We get to hear very little from the community in Greg's meetings. I'm in over my head on this project. I got in and at the beginning thinking I could understand it. I realized it's way over my head. I'm a big promoter of education and any kinds of training sessions that we can hold about these rather deep concepts that Greg continues to introduce in his Casper and his blog talks. And they seem to be critical to the to the performance and success of RChain. So we need, my hope is that we can move towards more education.
Thank you, Gary. Next up on the list that I've got in front of me, who hasn't spoken yet, is Rick Stefanowski. Rick, do you want to speak to what you hope from this time with community members?
Sure. My only concern right now is if there shouldn't be some discussion around ILB 5 being amended to include any new tokens that may come into the co-op's control, whether if they can create new tokens at mainnet or recover tokens of any kind, then it would be like a loophole over the control that the members wanted, having co-op in charge of assets. So I just think the wording of it could be better to protect from those possible outcomes.
Great. I think we will try to catch that. We've got a couple more folks to speak who've joined the call. Daryl, what are your aims for this time with other members? Do you have a comment?
I don't really have a comment, really. I'm just kind of here to kind of see where things are at right now. I've been kind of out of the loop for the last like 48, 36 hours, which seems like it's been forever because things change by the minute. So I'm kind of hoping to kind of find out what's going on.
Thank you, Daryl. Fabian, do you have a comment or aims for this session with members?
I just wanted to listen in. I fully recognize things are shifting at a very rapid pace within the organization. And obviously with all the changes that have been happening with the board, I recognize that there's going to be some new folks that will be stepping into those positions. So I'm really just here to listen in to see what people are thinking and where things potentially might go.
Great. Forgive me, there's I believe a set of Chinese characters at the bottom, and I can't render it as sound, but if you know who you are and you have a comment to make, please express yourself. I'll give you a moment. Okay. Well, my aims, I think based on the agenda, we wanted to spend some time letting folks know about the special meeting process, and I sort of made an announcement about that. And I think there's some specific items we could head toward with that. I would say that the most pertinent issue that's come from that, if members wish to express themselves, and I'll pass the floor to whomever after making this comment, but you know, it seemed fairly clear, just observe, actually that would be a good point for folks that have seen, reviewed the video or participated on Saturday. I think it'd be worthwhile to hear what your comments or impressions are. I'll say that in terms of action coming from that, it was Dan, and I think I support this notion that this is a very important time for members whose sentiment is to see a kind of decentralization of executive and managerial functions in the co-op to express themselves, because you know, within the bylaws there's certain language regarding an executive committee, and I believe there was an initiative later last year for an executive committee to go forward. The idea being that board members are supposed to meet once a month and not follow day-to-day duties, and they're really the co-op could be best served by having an ongoing group of managers and executives, each contributing their talents and insights collectively, and that kind of decentralization of managerial and executive functions would be a benefit both to, you know, our primary objective here as cooperative members is to see the realization of the platform. And I know that there was great enthusiasm for, you know, certain initiatives that came up in the last few months about removing the present executive, but with no constructive suggestion as to what, just taking that action without offering other people to take roles or responsibilities or assess the value that particular executives and managers and officers and board members and talent, leadership talent, instead of assessing the value that certain individuals may be able to contribute in a forward-going scheme, it's just, chop off the top. So I find myself really kind of surprised, honestly, that members haven't stepped up to this more constructive, what I believe to be a more constructive idea of the executive committee going forward, so that we can benefit from the decentralization of executive and managerial functions. All right, I'm sorry for taking so long. I guess I'll hand off to whomever wants to pick it up, either to respond to my comment, take it somewhere else, or since people have expressed an interest in this sort of special meeting, in the special meeting process, what have you observed in the special meeting process, and et cetera. Looks like Ned is ready to speak.
So I'd like to say a couple things. I don't think, from my perspective, any of the conversations about removing Greg as president and moving him as a full-time CTO has been without having some kind of plan as who could step in. And so I've had conversations over the months, with Barry Cinnamon, but now he's no longer here, and other folks about how that could happen. I do believe right now the candidate to become the president in name would be Ravi. And I'm not sure if that's been discussed with him, if he would want that, but he's acting as. So there is definitely, companies are not run by a board of directors. Board of directors are there to make sure that the running of the company is going smoothly according to the corporate goals, right? But they should not be, or I don't really know any board that is, like you had said, Rich, involved in the minutia of running the company. That's typically not what a board does.
True.
And I have long been saying we need an executive committee, president, vice president, treasurer, in all those roles, not the board, but people who are actually day-to-day running the company or the co-op. Greg had proposed this idea months and months ago about creating 5 vice president roles, which, that never really got much traction. I've never really quite seen anything like that. So I'm also concerned when you use the word decentralized running of the company, because I'm not quite sure what that means from a practical perspective. I think what we need is a board with oversight, and then we need an executive committee whose function is to run the day-to-day operations of the company. And those people are usually employees of the company, and they're paid for that job, which is a big job. Running any company, either as president, vice president, treasurer, these are big jobs, not where you could have somebody come in for an hour or two, every other week to make decisions. It doesn't work like that, and so that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see, what plans we have, and, where Greg could take a chief technologist role, because I think everybody across the board agrees that's what he's made for, right? And then but then how do we run the company? And so I would start with Ravi and then see what positions we need to fill. And honestly, if Ravi is not interested in that kind of position, then I think we have an uphill struggle to find somebody in that position. So that's what I want to say. Thanks for listening.
Deanna, do you have any comment?
Comment against what Ned was just saying? Is that what you're asking me? Or just in general?
Yeah, not against, but just a comment regarding this topic. Decentralization, decentralization of management functions, and how that could be gone about. I'm interested in your comment.
Okay. Well, I certainly agree with what Ned said. Generally, board of directors doesn't have as much hands-on in the day-to-day operations of it. Right now we are operating with I'd say we, I keep thinking I work for RChain, but operating with a very small number of staff, primarily because most of the money is going to the development staff. And so you've got Greg and Ravi, and I'm not sure how much Ravi is doing on a day-to-day business as far as COO. I haven't had the opportunity to work with him. I don't know if he would be interested or if he's qualified for that presidential role. Clearly, Greg has made it very clear that he wants to stay as president until mainnet. I am in full agreement with Ned that he would do much better in a CTO role. But that remains to be seen as to whether or not he'd be willing to step over into chief scientist or CTO or whatever that is. As far as decentralization, I think definitely having an executive committee helping out with that sort of checks and balances on what the management team is doing, primarily just because of the history in the past of this sort of, we're a co-op in name, but we're not a co-op in actuality. There's really been few people making decisions. Before Kenny left, it really was concentrated into, it was pretty much the Greg and Kenny show there for a lot of it, for the decision making. And so having another body of people to be able to make sure that there is a little bit more balance of decision making, particularly with this type of project. It's vast. It's not just creating one software project. There's so many different things on the platform from a technical standpoint, and then you have the governance on top of that. We really do need to have a lot more of that distribution of decision making going on. That said, there's also the risk of having too many people making decisions and making it such that it makes it very difficult for any forward momentum or progress to be made just because you have so many voices in the mix. So, I haven't given it a lot of thought as far as that, giving an executive committee the same sort of power as a board. It's kind of a new concept that I haven't really had a whole lot of time thinking about just yet. But I think for this particular organization and the way it has been run historically, it would be beneficial just because you would have more people involved in there making those decisions, and you'd have more community members potentially having a lot more say in the day-to-day operations of how things are being run.
Does anyone else want to speak? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to follow up on something that Rick had mentioned in the chat here. Again, Greg wants to remain as president. Yes, there's always the risk of Greg walking away, and he certainly has used that as a cudgel in the past for making sure that he stays in that position, because he's verbally said that a number of times that he would take his ball and go home or whatever. I can't remember what the analogy was that he was using, but so that is something that that's certainly a risk. Is it possible to have this project survive without him? Ideally, it would be great if he stayed on. This is his brainchild, but I think that we shouldn't be beholden to any kind of risk of that happening. If he is unwilling to change the power structure because of that, then that's a risk that the community needs to take into consideration and decide whether or not it's worth that sort of risk.
Yeah, I guess because that's a different thing. The community saying get rid of Greg is one sort of scenario. The other of, hey, Greg, like we as community believe that your vision could succeed by a different management and executive structure that's kind of following the rules more closely, not exposing, doing more research in terms of business dealings and associates, et cetera, et cetera. That, if we made that proposition to him, or if the members said, like, we could go to, for lack of a better word, it's, I think it's the executive committee format, which again, people are welcome to go to the issue in GitHub. Someone wants to find it and post it in the chat. I believe it's issue number 2 from the special meeting issues regarding executive committee. There is pertinent language in the bylaws, but we could try to formulate something that that makes sense, or in consultation with current board members. But that general sentiment of let's distribute these funds, let's have shared powers among a group of executives. If he chooses to say, no, I'm leaving, that's a completely different action than our motivation to to say, hey, not our, but the one that members have expressed, to say, hey, guy, we're done with you. It's a very different, the culpability and responsibility is then his, because we're offering, the community is offering an alternative path for the protection and realization of his vision. That's how it seems to me. Go ahead, Ned.
Rich. Yeah, I just want to ask if we can be careful on the language we use, because I think when we say get rid of Greg, it actually colors our discussion in a very different way, because I actually haven't heard anybody say, let's get rid of Greg. But, I think we want to find an alternate role. So I think language is important. And
sure, in this meeting, well, go ahead, sorry.
I think just in general. So, and it's certainly never been my intention, right? And I don't think anybody who's been thoughtful about this wants to get rid of Greg. So I just want to be careful with the language we use.
Well, okay, I'm referring to like the history on Discord in the last 7 months, where there were initiatives that received over 100 thumbs ups that essentially said, get rid of Greg. And
but they were all, from my understanding, they were all about removing him as president and having him be the CTO, which is not what I think of when I think of getting rid of Greg. So I just want to.
Fair enough.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Now, my comment on that is that if we can, demonstrate an organized executive committee, that then Greg will have the confidence that it's not mob rule, that there is some organization of the members and they are capable of making reasonable decisions. I think, rather than just getting him to agree to decentralize, we have to show him that we're capable. And, the other thing is that, the involvement in the executive committee, which has existed, has been sporadic, and well, it sort of lost organization. Kenny left. But, if we can get people committed to spend just a few hours a week working on these issues, that, we can do as well as if we had full-time people, if we have that organization.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think that there are a lot of people, this was actually where, again, I think I'm really interested, my self-interest is hearing from people that have reviewed or participated in the meeting on Saturday and what their comments were. But, I thought Dan did a really great job of opening the meeting with the framework of noting a member who basically for professional reasons wasn't making recommendation to his professional contacts to get involved with RChain because of the Google, you Google it, or just the kind of checkered history. And so that's a fundamental issue. Not only, the point I guess I'm making is that member sentiment is crucial. If we're going to turn this moment of crisis around and go a different direction with it, member engagement in the issues that in the special meeting process, in the issues that are identified there, in the audit and finance committee, in the governance committee, and then just reaching out to professional networks in supporting the idea of the construction of the executive committee. All of these are ways that we can. I think it really is crucial, and I think because we think of the management layer as up there making the important decisions, I think members sometimes don't realize really how vital the contribution that they make is, both in their personal actions and how they can change it just by their personal actions and engaging the community through our different communication channels. But also, I really, for 9 months, I've had, because I've been interested in the music project, and that's a different issue, but I haven't called people in. I haven't brought people in because haven't felt like the project got to a level of maturity that made sense. And that's real value for this cooperative. And I really believe it's not too late. It can be turned around. So I guess I'm inviting folks to have a comment for what they've seen from the Saturday process. And then also, if anyone wants to speak to the question as to whether, it's been raised in the chat, but, I think some people think, oh my God, if Greg steps back, takes a timeout, quits contributing for whatever, at his discretion, that's the end of the project. And I just wonder if there's a counter sentiment to that. Does anyone want to make a comment?
Kelly posted something in the chat that kind of relates to what you were just asking, I believe.
That was in 2000. Yeah, of course it doesn't.
And what exactly is the question? Yeah, I mean, I agree with Deanna. We need some really strong product and program management. It's something that we don't have right now in terms of getting us beyond, typically our 3-month timeline of development, so to speak to things like, Venus and Earth and Mars and all those other milestones. We don't have a lot of guidance at this point. We certainly don't have a lot of documentation. And that would all be work that would be required to do.
And if folks should mute if they're not on. Kelly, just taking that up, how does that impact? How does it impact the question of if, for example, Greg said, executive committee, I'm not interested, and steps back? Is that the end of the project, or is there still work to do until he decides to step back in?
I mean, I don't think so. Keep in mind when you release Mercury as a mainnet, the governance of the platform shifts over to the cooperative. And that's a big part of the responsibility of the co-op, is not only to have contributed to the development of the platform, but also to govern it. And what governing means is taking feedback from users, taking feedback from the community, and making decisions related to further development, and making decisions about, is this just an update, is it a patch, or is it a hard break? Distinguishing between Mercury as a platform and Venus with big changes would be a hard break, a hard fork. So, I mean, that will absolutely be governed by the cooperative, regardless of leadership. That's a priority and responsibility of the cooperative to do. I can't tell you what Venus looks like today. I know what we've toyed with in the past, but just suffice to say, no matter what you pursue, you still have you're already doing that. That's already what you've signed up for.
That's an excellent point. I believe it's IOB 6 that elucidates the co-op's responsibilities going forward, and it is the co-op, and it's seated in the members for the operation of the platform after mainnet. And so it may be prudent in that capacity of operations to have a variety of paths forward. I mean, God forbid something could happen to Greg that has nothing to do with what we're discussing here, and there should be a path forward. There should be contingencies. So anyway, that's a good point. Does someone else want to comment either on this topic, or I'm still trying to get somebody who's maybe no one has read the notes or attended the meeting on Saturday. There are 2 more meetings coming up, and it would be great. Those have been well advertised, and people can review the issues on the GitHub under the special meeting process and get ready for those meetings to make them as fruitful as possible. Anyway, those are the 2 comments, either continuing this, or does someone want to speak to what happened on Saturday? All right, hearing no comment. What else is on people's minds?
Well, I guess I can't remember who brought up that, that as members, we should also have a focus on delivery of the platform and development. And my thoughts are, there's a lot of sort of disjoint activities going on with respect to the RChain improvement process, and I guess that should be on the agenda.
I'm sorry, Jim, are you saying the RChain improvement process should be on the agenda for Saturday?
I don't know, but as a community, we should be trying to organize some activity toward the community actually applying that process.
I want to echo that. It is, the closer we get to launching mainnet, the more of an emergency this becomes. We did adopt that motion at the annual meeting, and it is fairly well described. But what I want to call out and what's described in that document is there are a lot of roles and responsibilities that absolutely must be filled in order for us to make any type of change to the platform. I mean, any type of change. And so it's important now. It's becoming critical, and it will be an emergency in the very near term, the closer we get to being ready to launch Mercury, to have the community well appraised of what the process is, and to have those roles filled, because there's a lot of work to do once it becomes time to take in feedback about what changes to make, and then make the decisions along the lines of, to the point that it goes to the development team for work, and then to updating the platform. Really, really important.
Well, I guess there are a few different ways that this can go, but one of them is, supposedly some money's come in. Supposedly some money is being raised. Where's the forward-going business plan that provides for the obligations that have to be met by the community to meet the improvement process? And why does that have to be siloed? Why can't, we got a model, a forward-going model from Nick Maines that at least is a data model that could be used. If management has one, community could make one, and community must make one. I mean, that's part of being a responsible manager and meeting the responsibilities that IOB 6 has identified in the RChain improvement process. So yeah, there's going back to what Jim said, there's a lot for folks to do, and it's good work, and it's part of realizing the platform. I'm seeing some chats. Rick's making some chats in the chat room. Do you want to comment on any of the things you're bringing up there, Rick? We've got about 10 minutes left before the community debrief. Is Rick still on the call?
Yeah, I guess I'm confused because as a non-technical community member, I don't know how to think about Greg's involvement with the project. And from my earlier question, Kelly said, or maybe it was Deanna, someone said that we can get to mainnet, without him if he decides to walk or if something happens. But I'm not clear on what mainnet is going to look like compared to the full vision that RChain was at the beginning of the first private sale, because now there's multiple stages, and I don't know what the difference is between the stages and how valuable Mercury will be and how much Greg is needed post Mercury. So it really feels like I'm at the whim of the more technical people to make decisions on how to move forward with this project and just be along for the ride.
I mean, I think that's a really excellent comment, and I don't have the issues, the special meeting process issues from GitHub up in front of me, but I think that Rick, I would encourage you to, if there isn't an issue there on that particular comment, embrace it. I think it's basically guided under the realization of IOB 6 and the RChain improvement process. I think Kelly made a note. I forget whether it's already there or not, but in any case, members need to engage in that format there and begin setting up committees and figuring out how we're going to actually do the work that we're responsible for. And also, again, I'll promote Saturday's session with Dan, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. East Coast. Would be a good venue. There's no reason why folks can't be working 24/7 on that GitHub, on those issues, and then bringing them as representatives to the special meeting process. And then there'll be another special meeting the following Tuesday. So this is a critical opportunity of engagement. And obviously, with the change in leadership, with 4 board members in the last 2 months resigning, and again, the sentiment of the current board members, Steve Ross Talbot and Ravi, is fairly clear in Saturday's session with some of these matters that we're discussing here. So I really encourage members to engage in this process. We've got about a week and a lot can get done. So does anyone else want to offer a comment at this time? Or I'll just try to pick other names. We've got about 5-10 minutes left.
I just want to, echo what Rick said. Rick, that's a very reasonable observation, and certainly a very reasonable concern. And I don't, you're very much not alone in that. That's a real issue.
I think that's also just a fact of a software project. If you're non-technical, you're just going to have a really hard time figuring out what's valid and what's not. I mean, even I think for a lot of people participating in this project who do have a software background, it's, I don't have a PhD in mathematics, so I can't tell the validity of some of the things that Greg's saying, whether or not that's the right course of action that we should be moving to next. Clearly, mainnet has not, we're not going to be releasing the full mainnet that we originally set out to do. How valuable and useful that mainnet's going to be is another big question. We still need type safety. That's not in there. A criticism that I've heard about the RChain mainnet is that we are basically going to be putting out a platform where it's going to be a lot easier to write faulty smart contracts than in any other platform, and that's going to be an issue. So that's something that people need to be very aware of, is that without having that type safety, you're giving a false sense of security and thinking that we don't have good tools for compiling, we don't have good tools for doing development and with the smart contract. So that is a bit of a hole with that. So again, how usable the mainnet is going to be is really going to be something that I think that the dev team and the technical leadership needs to be very, very clear about, people who are going to be using this platform. I've heard Greg in the past say, well, we're going to have this out there for people to start playing around with, but how much of this is going to be an actual enterprise-ready, valuable blockchain platform for people to be using is something that needs to be defined, I think, a lot better than what we're getting right now.
I think that we can say that it will run low calculus programs, and that the behavioral typing is something that can be done at compile time before it's put on that virtual machine. So the utility, the basic utility is there, and the type safety can be put into the development environment. Just an aside there. I always find that Greg's vision is beyond anyone else's that's on the project. And I think a good number of people agree with that, who are trying to see his whole vision. But even his vision beyond the technology in the community, cooperation at scale, collective intelligence, makes him, for many of us, the leader of the project, regardless of the management structure. And we, agree that he can't be the bottleneck in the organization, and that has to be fixed.
Even as a non-technical person, when Deanna says running faulty smart contracts, I kind of take notice, and I want to educate myself on what that comment is. That's not necessarily this moment to drill down on that, but to say again that, I mean, one of the things that brought me to the project is the opportunity to be involved in a forum where I can learn what Deanna is talking about, or watch a debate, and then offer my sentiment to who I think is making the most sense. Because we're actually, this membership has an amazing range of talents in it, and sentiment is not random, and sentiment is not, we're not just mobby babies. There's a lot of talent here, and and if we turn the general sentiment of the community around, not only would we have more resources for meeting our responsibilities under the RChain improvement process, but we would have more talent and even better talent. We really need to get beyond. That's why I see this as a design centralization problem. I've said to other folks that the current president is the serializing virtual machine that is the bottleneck of this process. And I really think we are ready to step beyond that limitation. And that just means we need better tools. We need better internal communication tools. We need better governance coordination tools. I think this spm19a issues process on the GitHub is a forum where we can offer asynchronous insight and plan and build and work together from all our different time zones to try to meet our responsibilities under the co-op, and not, because it is an existential moment. And so I'm here engaging and trying by my action to offer the venue for others to see that maybe engaging is worthwhile. We've got about 2 minutes left before I want to, shut down. I do, Greg has his community call, and we're in the habit of attending that. So I want to honor that for folks. Are there any other comments before we go? Any questions? Hearing none, I think this was a productive hour. It has been recorded. Other members will be able to see the conversation here, receive the information, and see how to engage in the next week or so. I also, I think this session of having a members meeting, I'd rather rotate. I don't want to be the man talking all the time, but I think we should start in issues on the GitHub about this meeting, how to submit agenda items, how to have it be led, so that this can be an important part of guidance going forward. That's my suggestion.
There is an issue in GitHub.
Okay, great.
We can, I'm sure it's out of date.
Okay, we'll find it till the next meeting. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.